I live in a three-bedroom house in the suburbs of Denver with my roommate, Josh. We're both heavy sleepers, and we both work 9-to-5 jobs, so the house is empty for most of the day. About 2 months ago, weird things started happening. It began with the food. I'd buy a gallon of milk, and 2 days later, it would be almost empty. I asked Josh about it, and he swore he hadn't touched it. Then it was the leftovers. I'd order a pizza, eat 2 slices, and leave the box on the counter. In the morning, the box would be in the trash, completely empty. We started fighting about it. I called him a liar. He called me paranoid. We even started labeling our food with Sharpies like petty college students. Then, the smells started. Occasionally, when I walked past the hallway closet that leads to the attic hatch, I'd catch a whiff of something sour, like unwashed clothes and stale sweat. I assumed it was Josh's gym bag, so I ignored it. Last Tuesday, I came home early from work because I had a migraine. My car was in the shop, so I took an Uber, meaning there was no car in the driveway to signal that I was home. I walked inside quietly, trying not to make my headache worse. As I stepped into the kitchen, I heard the TV running in the living room. "Josh?" I called out, confused. "You home?" The TV immediately clicked off. Silence. I walked into the living room. It was empty. The remote was sitting on the coffee table, perfectly parallel to the edge, which was odd because Josh is messy. I checked Josh's room. Empty. Then I heard a creak. It came from the ceiling directly above me. The attic. My heart started pounding. I grabbed a heavy metal flashlight from the kitchen drawer and walked to the hallway. The attic hatch was slightly ajar. The pulled-down string was swinging gently, as if someone had just let go of it. I didn't go up there. I'm not stupid. I called the police immediately and waited on the front lawn. When the officers arrived, they went up into the attic with guns drawn. They didn't find anyone at first, but they found a nest. Tucked behind the insulation in the far corner of the attic was a sleeping bag, a bucket filled with human waste, and piles of candy wrappers. But the most chilling thing was the peephole. They found a small hole drilled through the drywall floor of the attic. It looked directly down into my bathroom. The police searched the perimeter and found that a vent on the roof had been pried open from the outside. The person had escaped onto the roof while I was waiting on the lawn. The scariest part? Based on the amount of trash and waste up there, the police estimated the stranger had been living above our heads for at least 3 months. Every time I showered, every time I slept, he was just 6 feet above me, watching. My husband and I bought a fixer-upper in upstate New York. It's an old Victorian house built in the 1920s with lots of weird nooks and crannies. We knew it needed work, but the price was too good to pass up. The first week we moved in, I kept losing my phone charger. I'd leave it on the nightstand, go to the bathroom, and when I came back, it was gone. I'd eventually find it under the bed or in the hallway. I blamed it on the stress of moving. Then, items started moving on their own. Pictures on the mantel would be turned face down. The kitchen chairs would be pulled out slightly, as if someone had just stood up from them. One night, I woke up to a scratching sound. It was coming from the wall behind our headboard. Scritch, scritch, scratch. "Honey," I nudged my husband, David. "There's a rat in the wall." David groaned, half asleep. "I'll call the exterminator tomorrow." The exterminator came the next day. He crawled around the crawl space and checked the exterior. He came back into the kitchen, looking pale. "Ma'am, you don't have rats," he said, "but you have a problem." He led me to the basement. Behind the furnace, there was a small wooden panel that looked like part of the wall. He pried it open with a screwdriver. It revealed a narrow, hidden corridor that ran between the walls of the house. It was a prohibition tunnel used to hide alcohol in the 1920s. But it wasn't empty. Inside the tunnel, we found a mattress, a pile of men's clothes, and a stack of my mail that had gone missing from the mailbox over the last few weeks. And on the wall of the tunnel, written in charcoal, were times. 6 a.m., they wake up. 8:30 a.m., they leave. 5:45 p.m., she comes home alone. I screamed. The timestamp for "she comes home alone" was circled. We called the cops, and they swept the house. They found him hiding in the crawl space under the front porch. He was a drifter who had been living in the area. He had been entering the house through a loose board in the porch that led to the basement. He had been living in our walls for 2 weeks. The police told us that when they arrested him, he had a knife in his pocket and a length of rope. He wasn't just living there. He was planning something. I live in a large apartment complex in Seattle. My unit is on the ground floor, which I usually like because I don't have to deal with stairs. About a month ago, I started noticing that my apartment was cold. I'd turned the heat up to 75, but when I woke up in the morning, the thermostat would be set back down to 60. I thought it was a malfunction. I even called maintenance to replace the unit. Then, things got weirder. I'd come home from work and find the toilet seat up. I'm a single woman. No one else has a key. I asked the landlord if maintenance had been entering my apartment, and he said no. I changed the locks, thinking maybe an ex-boyfriend had a copy. Last Friday, I decided to make a late-night snack. It was around 2 a.m. I walked into the kitchen and opened the pantry door to grab a bag of chips. The pantry in my apartment is unusually deep. It goes back about 4 feet under the staircase of the building. I grabbed the chips and closed the door. As the latch clicked shut, I froze. I had heard something inside the pantry. A soft exhale, a breath. I stood in the dark kitchen, staring at the white wooden door. Maybe it was the settling of the building, I told myself. Then, very slowly, the doorknob began to turn. I didn't think. I reacted. I grabbed the heaviest thing on the counter, a cast iron skillet, and backed away. The door creaked open. A hand reached out. It was filthy, with long, yellow fingernails. Then a face emerged from the shadows of the pantry shelves. A man. He was incredibly thin, wearing layers of dirty clothes that matched the color of the shadows. He looked right at me and put a finger to his lips. Shh. I screamed. I screamed so loud my throat tore. I threw the skillet at him. It hit him in the shoulder and he stumbled back into the pantry. I ran out the front door, barefoot, into the snow. I banged on my neighbor's door until they let me in. When the police arrived, the man was gone. But they found out how he got in. The back of my pantry had a removable panel that led into the building's maintenance shaft. He had been entering my apartment every day while I was at work to eat my food and watch TV. But the worst part was what they found under my bed. They found a small audio recorder. The police played the last file for me. It was a recording of me sleeping, just 8 hours of me breathing. And at the very end of the recording, right before I woke up, a whispery voice said, "She looks so pretty when she dreams."